Welcome to Free Burn. This is Matt Ballard, your host. This is the podcast where we talk all things mental and behavioral health in the first responder community. Real life firefighters, police officers, EMTs and paramedics, clinicians, and doctors. It's time we have the real conversation and burn the stigma behind first responder mental health, one podcast at a time. Welcome back, folks. This is Matt Ballard with Free Burn 2023, your host. Today, we're going to be sitting down with Michael Goldstein. He's been a firefighter for 11 years, 6 years as a call member, and 5 years a career member for the Dairy Fire Department there in New Hampshire. Michael's been a dispatcher for 15 years before starting his career as a firefighter. Michael is a staff and state instructor for New Hampshire Fire Academy and was a member of the SMART SAR team as Swiftwater Rescue Technician. He was recently awarded a Meritorious Service Medal for his work with the New Hampshire Emergency Service Training Academy by the State of New Hampshire Committee of Merit. Holds numerous certifications, Fire Level 1 and 2, Rapid Intervention Team, Ice Rescue Technician, Water Rescue Technician, Fire Inspector, both NFPA and I'm guessing state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Fire Officer 1, Fire Instructor 1, Driver Operator, Rope Rescue Operations, and you're an EMT basic.
Correct.
Married for 13 years and has 2 twin daughters. That's got to be exciting.
It is exciting. They're a lot of fun. So just a real quick correction real quick is So I haven't been on Dairy for 5 years. I just started with Dairy Fire Department recently. Okay. I've only been there for almost a month. Okay. So but I had been career 5 years with my previous department.
Okay. All right. Good deal. So yeah, man, I know we talked a little bit beforehand and just kind of getting an idea of how fire service works up there. I know there's a deep, rich history up in the northeastern for fire departments. So a little bit different than it is here in Texas, but I'm sure the things that we see and do are pretty much the same. But yeah, if you want to share a little bit about that, just tell us about the departments you work for and what you've done.
Sure. So I started as a call member, which is kind of a fun classification of a part-time firefighter for the community I live in. So I live in Milford, New Hampshire, and we were strictly just a call membership, and we started to up our staffing. So the call members respond from home. When their tones drop, they carry pagers. As soon as the tones drop, they get in their trucks, they head to the station. They get in their gear, they get in the engines, and they go to wherever call that needs to go to. Then we, approximately about 5 years ago, the town realized they need to have better coverage just because of the way the world is. People need to work. People need to provide for their families. And unfortunately, as it is a nationwide problem, a lot of volunteers and call members were dropping off because they couldn't respond to calls. They needed to go to work instead. Right. So our town said, yeah, we definitely need our help. We need to make sure we're protected during the day because that's the hardest time. So we decided to, or the town decided to hire more people for the day. I was one of them. So I was one of the first career members that Milford hired, and it was actually it was a lot of fun being there during the day. We worked Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, and then just recently they changed their staffing. And they hired more firefighters to help with supplement the fact that, again, our call members weren't able to respond in evening hours as well because they are coming back home from work. Yeah. So they hired more guys. So now they run 2 groups, and they work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 4 days on and 4 days off. And it seems to work pretty well. And they're still going strong. But I had just recently left there. I started a new department in Derry, New Hampshire. It's about 40 miles away from me. And they're strictly a full-time department. They're a very busy department, and they work really well. And they do a 24 and 72.
That would be nice.
Pretty cool. It is nice. Yeah. I do love it. It's nice to have those 3 days off. It's different because my former career as a dispatcher, we worked some crazy hours, and then so usually your days off we're just sleeping all the time. So it is nice to not have to sleep your whole day away for your days off. or have
Yeah.
to come in all the time. So there is mandatory overtime, as every department has when short staffing or anybody else bangs out of shifts. But so far, I love it. The new department I'm on has been so supportive, so friendly, so helpful.
Yep.
They want to see you succeed, and it's a new environment for me, coming from some place that really didn't have that kind of environment.
Right. So how many years were you in dispatch?
So I started in 2005 as
Mhm.
a dispatcher for a private ambulance company called Rockingham Ambulance, or
Okay.
Rockingham Regional Ambulance, and they're a very strong force in the New England area, especially in New Hampshire. They had a lot of contracts
Yep.
and very, very, very busy. So
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed it. I still do dispatching part time for a local dispatching agency I was on for 5 years, called Milford Area Communication Center, and they
Hmm.
dispatch police, fire, and EMS. And then
Yeah.
for a very short time, I had worked for Nashua Fire Rescue as a fire alarm operator, and
Okay.
I was there for about a year and a half. And then I moved over to full time with my the previous department I was on, and so I still do it as a part time job. I love it. It's just something I grabbed onto naturally, and you
Yeah.
know, and it's not for everybody, right?
No.
Having to sit there for 10 hours, 14 hours, and having to handle all those phone calls and radio traffic, it's definitely a difficult job. But I tell you, I still love it. It's something that I still have a passion to do, along with firefighting as well.
Yeah. I'm very interested in the dispatch end of it. The they struggle with the same stuff that most first responders
Sure
do. Yet,
do.
from their end of it, I can see how that could be, maybe a little bit worse sometimes, not being able to see what's actually going on and just hearing everything that's going on can be a
I think
different
the
aspect.
hardest part is not see, because you feel so right. You have the phone in your hand, or you're on the
Yeah.
radio, and you want to reach out and you want to help, because that's what we do. We want to,
Yep.
we're all hands on kind of people, but you don't get to do that. And then also there's the fact of sometimes there's no closure. You get to be out in the field, you get to take them to the hospital, or you get to stay after for the scene, or you get some kind of updates. At least you get to see it in person. Or
Sure.
as a dispatcher point of view, you're so busy sometimes that you don't get that closure of what happened to that person, or any kind of update. So you're kind of left hanging, and you just have to
Sure.
go on to the next call. So usually, sometimes you, again, being on an ambulance, you get to go back to the ER for another call. You can see that patient. You can talk to the nurses, maybe get some updates. As a dispatcher, you have to really ask for that, or reach out to see if that person made it, or are they happy with your service, or all the fire
Yep.
stations usually, and the ambulances, right, and the police, they always get cookies and they get those thank you letters, but at times the dispatchers don't get it.
Yeah.
Because they're usually in their ivory tower, and they're
Right.
kind of out of that view, because no one ever sees who they are or where they're located, so they miss all the goodies.
Hmm.
So it's being on both ends of it. I have appreciation for when a dispatcher is trying to dispatch structure fires, cardiac arrests,
Yep.
serious motor vehicle accidents, anything that's really huge and takes a lot of manpower. It's an overwhelming situation, and you have to have your head on a swivel and your ears on a swivel, and you've got to pick up all this radio traffic. And I
Sure.
tell you, dispatcher's life is not that easy. It's very, very
Yeah.
difficult having to deal with, and they're hurting too. Dispatchers all over the place are hurting for people to sit in those chairs and do that job, because the hours are long. It's a thankless job, and again, you're not seen, because you're usually behind that curtain, right, like the Wizard of Oz,
Sure.
and no one really sees you, and so then you kind of don't get that thank you. You usually get the chiefs, or usually higher ups, who really appreciate it, and they will come up and they'll either write you an email or call you up and go, "That was a fantastic job." Just the thank you goes, when you have a chief that calls up and says, "That was a fantastic job. You did
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much." That's all
Yep.
you need as a dispatcher,
Hmm.
really, for me. That's if a chief is happy with my service and he gives me a thank you on the phone or on the radio, it made my day.
Sure. Yeah. For many, many years, I didn't even really, I hate to say it. It's just like, I've thought about it over the years, but just didn't take the time to really go to our dispatchers and just say, hey, thank you, for what you've done. There's been calls that were
Yeah.
like, thinking back on it now, it's like, man, how did, I can't even imagine how they handle those things, especially not being able to really see what was going on and just hearing everything, I'm sure it
Yeah, it's
sticks with
tough.
them. as a
It
dispatcher.
does. There's definitely, because those things you can't get out of your ears, right? Like
Yeah.
for us in the field, we can't get it out of our eyes. It's embedded in our head. But as a dispatcher, either screams and
Yep.
just something, or just the seriousness that's it's echoing in your ears, and you can't get that out sometimes. Even sometimes
Yeah.
sounds trigger certain
Sure.
aspects of it. You could be at home, you just hear the sound, like that just brings you back to when you had that person on a call, and either they were
Hmm.
screaming for help, and they had to wait for that long because the way the system works here in New Hampshire is we have a 911 system.
Yep.
So, but that's up in Concord. So when someone calls 911, they call 911. It goes to a dispatch center for the state. They
Hmm.
get it and they determine whether it's police, fire, EMS.
Okay.
And so if you're strictly fire or in the EMS side of things, you're going to get those type of calls, and they
Okay.
call it EMD. So it's a emergency medical dispatch.
Yep.
So you get a warning that pops up on your screen, so you can kind of get yourself ready. So say if it's a cardiac arrest call coming in, you
Hmm.
see it on your screen and it says echo level, because they do determine it's alpha, bravo, uh, delta, all those through the
Yep.
list. Echo is the most severe, and then it pops up on your screen. If it says echo, it's going to be something bad.
Right.
So then as soon as you pick up the phone, you kind of, for me, when I trained people, because when I was doing it for dispatching's career, sometimes, especially my older place, I would help to
Hmm.
train them. And so I'd always tell them, take a breath first, get that
Yep.
cleansing breath out, because if you try to dispatch something and you're worked up inside, you're going to hear it. Your voice is going to be trembling.
Sure.
They're going to hear it in your side. They're going to hear it, the uncertainty or the nervousness or the anxiety in your voice. Just breathe it out.
Yep.
Take a second, dispatch it, then go ahead, take another breath, because
Yep.
especially like say for structure fires, for me, because especially when I was dispatching for my community, I was also on that fire department. So if I didn't get to be a part of the fire, I was a part of the dispatching part of it. So
Right.
I'm worked up with them. I know what they're expecting. I know what's going to happen. So I got to take that cleansing breath, dispatch them, and then start just saying, received, you're en route, you're on scene, this is what you got. As soon as they get
Yep.
on scene, the problem kind of goes away for us for the most part, because now they're doing
Right.
their thing. We're just listening to
Hmm.
make sure everyone's safe. We're
Yes.
keeping ears open for maydays. We're keeping ears open for anything else that's going on. But we don't get to stop and just listen. Now we got to pick up the phones for everybody else calling in or other kind of emergencies. So that's,
Hmm.
the firefighters, they get to handle that emergency in front of them. The dispatchers have to still handle every other emergency that's going on the radio, or everybody calling in another cardiac arrest or another motor vehicle accident, or just, hey, I'm sick, I don't want to go to the hospital. You still have to have that compassion on the phone and not be angry with them
Right.
because you're dispatching a fire.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm dispatching a structure fire. I can't help you right now. They don't want to
Can't
hear
talk
that.
to you right now.
I have
Call
an
back later.
emergency. Deal with me. Exactly.
Yep.
So that's tough.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, man. Yeah, we're gonna have some dispatchers on here, and just obviously they have their journeys too, stories.
They sure
So
do.
yeah, we're definitely gonna have some dispatchers on here. I've got one lined up right now, and hoping to get some more. So
That's great. Yeah, they definitely need to be recognized.
yeah,
They
for
are,
sure.
again, the voice that's not seen, but
Yep.
it's heard. And they're people behind that radio, and they hurt, and they got stuff that goes on. And sometimes you have really good departments and good communities that recognize that need to be treated as well. And
Yep.
actually, as the years has progressed, I've noticed that big change. The dispatchers
Sure.
are now being part of that. And I
Mhm.
love the fact. So when they have their debriefing session on a big call, they do
Yep.
bring in those dispatchers as well.
You
And
have to, man.
they let them, yeah,
You
exactly.
have
They let
to.
them talk, they let them feel, and let them know it's okay, and they all work it out together. And I think it's great. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. So, do y'all have like peer teams and stuff up there? Is that getting pretty big up there in y'all's area?
Yeah, yeah, they do have peer support teams. The state is very good about that. They actually have a critical response support team that you can call, and they bring in trained personnel to come in and speak to your members. And
Hmm.
again, it's not mandatory. If you try to make somebody talk, right? If somebody doesn't want
Yeah,
to
it just
talk,
doesn't work.
they're not going to
Yeah.
talk, and they're just going to be angry because you're trying to make them talk. So
Yeah.
the critical support team, they really are very good at what they do, and the chiefs will bring them in and have them sit down with the members and go over as a group, what they're feeling. And of course, there's employee assistance programs
Yeah.
that usually it's part of the benefits. So if they need help, the chiefs and whomever is responsible for that lets them know, hey, if you need help, reach out. Or there's just members too who have seen it and done it, and will reach out to other junior members and say, if you don't want to talk to them, if you want to talk to me or talk to somebody else that you trust, we can do that for you as well.
Yeah.
again, the previous department that I worked for a hot minute, Nashua, they have a really good, their union, they get together, Nashua Fire, and they a bunch of senior members teamed up, and they do group sessions. They like almost like therapy group sessions for the members. If they want to be a part of it, they can. They have their own union house, so they broadcast, and they open it up to other members in the fire service outside of their department as well, which I think is grand. And if anybody wants to come in and listen and talk, they let them listen and talk, and there obviously there's no judgment, and they can get it all out, and then they of course feel better, hopefully, for getting that out. But the support is getting a lot better. Again, as we've seen through the years, again, I've been doing this since 2005, just talking on the radio, but and now I've seen it in the field. It's definitely in the spotlight of first responder mental health. And again, the department that I'm now on, they're very pro fitness, but not just physical, but mental fitness. And they push it a lot. Very like important. We want you to be healthy mentally and physically. So
what's up, buddy?
That's Freya. That's my Mastiff. She's my good girl.
Yeah, that's awesome. Come on and join in.
So the state's really good.
Yeah.
The state's been good, and a lot of departments again have seen it, and PTSD and suicide awareness has been really pushed to the forefront. It was cancer, it was heart attack. Well, now we know we got suicides and mental health, and I think it's great that people are recognizing that and making sure people aren't feeling embarrassed for it.
Yeah. So on y'all state, is it more of a state-ran peer system, or is it department-based?
So the response team, the critical support or incident response team, they are it's a state. Okay. So you got a state number you can call, and they collect the group and whoever is on that team, and it'll come in for that. So it's nice that the state understands that, and they built that together, and they
that's awesome, dude.
Every department has that. Yeah, it does work. It's very, very good. They're not used. They're used, but not used. There's times where people just. It just doesn't happen. Nobody says, "Hey, I need to talk to someone," or some departments just say, "Nah, we don't need them right now." But at least they got that number if they need it. And the state does a really great job with promoting that and saying, "Here we are. Here's the number. We're at your service whenever you need us." Yeah, got no cost, awesome. Obviously.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Like the peer teams here, it's more department driven. It's starting to the state association is starting to. I want to say be more involved because they've been involved, but it's becoming more at the forefront kind of thing, and then we obviously have our International Association of Firefighters that, have been involved in stuff. And a lot of the training that I've done is through the international. And then, the local peer stuff is starting to really take off department citywide. So,
and I think the IFF has done a great job with that too. I mean, you've got, they have a whole setup in Colorado, which I think is fantastic. That I know people who've used it.
Yep.
Yeah, and the fact that they send out emails and updates, and it's out there. And if you need help, the IFF is going to help you out. But unfortunately, again, for us here, the volunteers or call members, they don't have access because they're not in that union, right? They're not part of the IFF. Yeah. So that's a difficulty with that, but the state does provide a service, but
that's good, man.
For our guys, again, for call members or volunteers, they still work for their towns. They're still part of that municipality. So they do get services that are provided to them. And if the town, for whatever reason, they don't have the budget, or if it's not involved in that, again, you can reach out to the state, and the state will help you or help that department out as much as they can.
Yeah, you have to have those layers, man.
Yes.
If you don't have those layers, and that's when bad stuff can happen. And even with those layers, bad stuff still happens.
Sure does.
I just interviewed Jeff Deal with Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. I don't know if you saw that podcast, and it was the last one I put out, but and I don't even know if you know who he is, but very good resource to have. Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. Look that up when you get a chance. But
I certainly will.
They he started recording firefighter suicides and EMS and dispatchers.
That's
I think
great.
He started in 2009 or 2010. He's been doing it for a little bit longer than that, but right now he's over Las Vegas Fire's peer support team. He runs that. Very knowledgeable dude, great guy, and obviously I watch that page pretty hard just to see where those suicides are falling. And man, it's to see those. I don't even like to call them numbers; they're actual people, but to see the people that are our brothers and sisters that are feeling like they have no other resource, but suicide is just, it's heartbreaking to me, man. And that's part of the
It
reason we do
certainly
what we
is.
do. But,
Yeah. I
we
think
got
it's
to
great
do
that
more.
I love the fact you did that. As soon as I saw that on Facebook, I saw that I had to immediately
Yeah.
reach out to you, and obviously a big thank you. You don't have many podcasts, if you will, or live streams that talk about all of this, and
Right.
people do talk about it now, which is great, but it's still some places it's still kind of taboo, and
Yep.
I think
That
for
stigma, man.
us, that stigma, we feel we feel weak, or we feel like victims, or we feel like we just we're supposed to be tough people and keep it all inside, and
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely tough, and it rips your home apart,
Yep.
rips your life
Sure
apart.
can.
Yeah,
Sure can.
yeah,
So with that, brother, let's jump into your journey.
sure.
Okay.
What do you got? So
So how did it start for you? I mean, just kind of however you want to
yeah,
start it. And let's
so
just
for
share
me,
what you want to share.
right now I've kind of living a new life, so I get to tell my story. So for
Mm-hmm.
a long time, I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody, or especially anybody on the outside. Like I couldn't be open about things I was dealing with. And so like right now, especially with you doing this, I had to jump on it because I never got to speak openly about my mental health problems,
Yep.
because I was going to be afraid I was going to, again, like we just talked about, being made fun of, feeling weak. People were going to judge me.
Mm-hmm.
If I come back to the department that I was on, am I going to be retaliated against for speaking out in public about it?
Yep.
So for me, my journey really started. It's been starting for really one person, and it was the department I just left. So for me, my mental health is not about the shit that I've seen. I don't know if I can swear or not, but
Yeah, you can. Absolutely, bro.
the great. So the stuff that I've seen in the field, I definitely saw. We've some nasty stuff, but I don't need to go back of what I've seen and how I dealt with it, but or how bad the gory scene was or whatever it was. But I was able to compartmentalize that aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
because in my mind's telling me this is not your emergency. And I don't mean not running on fire grounds. It's all of our emergencies. But
Sure.
when I come home, that problem's gone. I can't
Yeah, you
bring
didn't
that problem
create that.
home. I
Yeah.
didn't create that problem. I helped them, but I
Yep.
didn't create that problem. So I've always been good about that, is being a dispatcher for many years. But I came from a background of abusive family.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been able to deal with compartmentalizing everything. And
Sure.
as a kid, I lashed out because I was always in trouble because my stepdad beat me. I was from a divorced family. I had a stepmother who was abusive mentally.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always back and forth with my family. Just really couldn't find a place. So of course, what every kid does, lashes out, right? I was always getting in fist fights. I was always getting in trouble at school,
Mm-hmm.
suspended, and just living that kind of life. And I finally woke up and I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I could be a statistic and be in prison, be a drug addict, be a horrible person because I had a horrible life.
Yep.
I decided to go. I just had an awakening when I was in my 20s. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be that person. So what really helped me for that is I started becoming a dispatcher for Rockingham Ambulance. And I knew
Yep.
I didn't want to screw that up. So I decided to make sure that I didn't get in trouble and I wasn't going to do stupid things anymore. And then, of course, years progressed and I continued with that career. And then I had my family. I met my wife and we had kids. And, when you get older, you can't get in fist fights. You can't get fired from work. That's just not
Right.
good. And, but I still had those demons of my stepdad and my stepmom. And, so I still always had those demons behind me, and I never really talked too much about it when I was lashing. I was a kid. No one ever asked me really why. They just, well, the kid's a problem, and that was
Right.
how you just brush things off. So, fast forward now to working for the previous department I was on. My PTSD was more of, or my mental health was about one person who would just belittle, degrade me, make you feel like shit. Maybe he
Yep.
had mental health problems going on as well, and he didn't want to deal with it. But he was a captain when I joined, and was just an angry, abusive. Not I wouldn't say abusive, abrasive person.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and when I talked about it with other people, that's just the way he is. That's who he is, and they just
Yeah.
accepted it. So
Just
he could be a
accept it for
complete
what it is.
asshole, right? But it was just, yeah, that's the way it is. So you'd be like, hey, I don't like the way he's treating me. That's the way he is.
Yeah.
So I had an issue one day. We were on a fire scene and I forgot my helmet inside the house. I was going out to get a can and literally stopped the whole show and just belittled me in front of everybody. Instead of just, hey, Mike, go get your helmet, it was screaming at me. He was on the turntable and he's just screaming at me, just ripping me down because I walked out of the house without my lid on. And
Yeah.
stood there and took it. And everybody watched the show. And then I like politely said, can I go get the can now? And he's like, no, somebody else can who has a helmet. You can't. Okay. Go back in the house. And the chief at the time's like, what took you so long? I'm like, oh, I just got my ass ripped apart because I walked out with my own helmet.
Yeah.
And they all just looked at each other and went, yeah, that's the way he is. So my first experience with him was that. And that's why they always told me the chain of command. So I went to my captain on my company. Again, we're call members at that time. So it was just, you had each company and so you had an officer. So I went to my officer and told him the issue I had. And it was really bothered me because my stepdad was like that. And
Yeah.
so it just made me feel like a kid again, made me feel like a piece of shit. And
Yep.
so I went to my captain and he told the on-call deputy at that time, and they had a conversation with the chief. The next day, that captain finds me in the bay and straight up asked me, are you a girl? And I said, what? Are you a girl? I said, well, no. He says, why are you acting like a pussy? And I was like, what? Why are you acting like a pussy? I'm not. Well, you're acting like a pussy because you tell your captain that you had a problem with me. You come to me. You don't go to your captain. You come to me and you deal with me. Be a man. Don't be a pussy. And I just, right then and there, I was like, okay, this is who I'm dealing with. This is a
Yeah.
person who is not going to apologize for any way, any shape or form if he upsets you, if he verbally abused you. So I knew right, and right, he had the old mentality of, this is the fire service. You got to have tough skin. You got to be a man. So what if somebody yells at you? I expect to be yelled at the fire guns. If I do something really stupid, it's unsafe, I expect to get my ass handed to me,
Sure.
go, hey, knock that off, or to be
Right.
spoken to afterwards. But this was something that, as being a new person, didn't need that kind of treatment.
Sure.
But the fact that
Not for forgetting a helmet. I mean, come on, dude.
right. But it was the
I think
fact that
we've
what really
all
struck
done
me
that at one
was,
point in our
we've all
careers.
done that, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that really struck me was, he didn't apologize of, hey, I'm sorry that I upset you, or I'm
Yeah.
sorry you mistook me. It was, stop being a pussy. Don't go through your chain of command. Talk to me like a man, and don't go around my back. And that wasn't the fact. And it was like, it was drilled in my head. You go through your officer.
Yeah.
And that was the day I learned I will not win with him in any arguments. So
Yep.
we continued on, and now he is the chief of the department, and we just always had this rocky relationship. Some days we really like each other, some days we can't stand each other.
Yeah.
And I would come home and I would just be so upset of just the things that he would say. I mean, he really would do anything to make himself feel better, or look better. So I don't know what, like him and I, we just had this, I don't know what he didn't like about me, right? So that was really
Yeah.
starting to eat away at me. It made me feel like a kid again. Every time he would rip me down, he would call me fat or stupid, or he'd call me gay, he'd call me a homo. I mean, these were just things he was, and I never bothered to say anything to anybody, because why bother? Because I brought it up to somebody before,
Yeah.
and no one did anything about it.
Mhm.
So what if I do something if I say something to somebody now, he's going to retaliate against me. And again, this is as he was a captain. I mean, he used to punch me in the balls. He thought it was funny. He would do all these things, and I just it seemed like to me acceptable behavior because no one said
Yeah.
anything. And these be in front of other people who were chief officers, and it was almost like acceptable behavior. So I never said anything, because who am I going to say anything to? Because
Yeah.
it'd just be Mike complaining, it'd be Mike being a puss. Mike is always whining or something. So I just took it, and it wasn't me the only one who had these issues, but everyone was afraid to step up and say something, because he's kind of has that bully mentality. So if you say something about him, he's going to approach you, he's going to get in your face, and he's going to make you feel small. And so I kept carrying that load of always just feeling like I didn't have a voice, and I couldn't say anything either to him, because he always claimed, you can talk to me, but then if he didn't like it, he's going to let you know how much he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
So I worked real hard from where I was, and again, I took great pride in what I do, and I have a great passion for the fire service and being a first responder, and I love helping people. So I always just that's what I look forward to. And so even coming to work, there'd be days like I know I didn't want to see him, but I'd rather help somebody. So
Yeah.
I kept working, but he just, it was really just working for him that really started making me have PTSD for inside the workplace. And the Chief
Yep.
David Rhodes, him and Chief Ali Dina, they're really hitting the fact of that there's a toxic environment inside the firehouse that nobody speaks of. And it could be a chief, it could be a
Very
captain,
much so, brother.
lieutenant, right? And so for me, it was that captain, and he rose to chief. And him and I just had this abusive not abusive, but this rocky relationship. And it just always ate away at me. I would bring up issues, but they always just brushed it away. And so for me, it was starting to get worse. And, there'd be times where I would leave my house to work a structure fire. I left my kid's birthday. I don't expect to get pat on the back when I go into work. I don't expect to get pat on the back if I go do a structure fire, but I do expect maybe a thank you because I left my kid's birthday to go work to a structure fire all night, then go to work for 8 hours without complaining about not having to slept or having to miss my kid's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
I just expect maybe, hey, nice work today. So I was always this running joke with him, especially if he ever said thank you. I always told people, if he told you good job or thank you, you take your little dream book, you write that in the log, you put it under your pillow, and you save that for a rainy day, because that's the only time you're going to get to remember that. Because it doesn't happen often. He was one of those people who does not say thank you. He does not say good job. And I don't know for him if it was a side of weakness or, what. And he would always say it too. Why am I going to thank you for a job you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
That was his mentality. I'm not going to thank you before walking in the door. I'm not going to thank you for getting on the fire truck and doing your job today. But when you see a nasty scene or you do something that's over and beyond, it would be nice to say, hey, I appreciate you.
Yeah. Good job.
For him and I, good job. And so our call members were going away from that. And they all say it's not because of him, because everybody is afraid of retaliation.
Mm-hmm.
So people who've left never complained because they're afraid of what he's going to say. And now I don't care anymore. I feel free. I can actually have a voice. Because I know if I was doing this right now and this goes on online and I go into work, you're damn right. He's going to bring me in that office and bring me a new one. So when I left after 11 years of service, I got a handshake from him. That was it. He wiped me off the board. He makes it like I do not exist. And that's the only thing that bothered me, is that I spent a lot of time and energy for this department. And it was mainly because of him that I wanted to leave. But I had a lot of issues before I left. Mainly from him, just being passed over for promotions. The fact that he would get in your face about the stuff, he'd like quiz you and he would yell at you for it. And when you vapor lock or not know how to respond because he's yelling at you, he would always go, "Why are you vapor locking? Why do you do that when I yell at you?" And I was like, "Because you're yelling at me. I don't want to be yelled at and screamed at like that. That's not how people respond. It's not how you train people." Mm-mm. So for years, again, all the comments, all the negativity just kept eating away at me. And I'd just go home and I would just unload onto my wife about how much I feel like a piece of shit when I'm around him. And again, I always said to my wife, I said, I hate to feel it this way. I feel like a victim. I hate feeling like that. It's almost like the abusive relationship that I always equated to a wife and a husband. When they have that abusive relationship, that I should leave. And then the next day he's really nice to you. Okay, I'm not going to leave because he's nice to me today. He didn't mean it. He was just angry. And so that next day is good. And then the weeks are good. And all of a sudden, it'll be a month later and then he just rips you a new one for something that's really not your fault or just wasn't asked to you. And you're like, damn it, I should have left a month ago. Yeah. And then again, the next day it's like, oh, he's nice again. It's going to be, and it just, that cycle keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And then you're again, 11 years later, like, what am I doing here? And like literally on a daily basis, I would ask myself, what am I doing here? Yeah. And so the day I told him I was leaving, he didn't say like, why? Like, what is it that you want to leave? Like, I know you're unhappy. That was his whole thing. You're unhappy. So hope you find happiness somewhere else. But it was never the questions. I'm sorry that you're leaving. So, it's a great thing that I am. It's just that all those past experiences I'm trying to forget, and then again, it's brings me always, everything just brings me back to my childhood. And I was open with him about how he's negative, and I tried to open his eyes to it. I don't really think he got it.
Yeah.
And so when I left, when I told him that I was leaving, I had this whole picture in my mind of I wanted to have a nice, relaxed, out of the office meeting with him in the Bay, and I was going to tell him that I was leaving this new department. My vision was we're going to sit on the bumper and have a dad and lad chat.
Yep.
Because I thought we're at that level. Tell him my situation, say, hey, we're leaving. Oh, I'm leaving. I accepted a job offer with this other department. If you get phone calls about it, this is what's going on. I want you to be the first to know. And I was hoping that maybe him and I would have a good conversation. No, didn't hear anything about it. Walked out the door. Then he wants to see me the next day and have a meeting about it. So we sit down and have a meeting about it. The first thing he tells me is that he's mad and disappointed about the way I told him that I was leaving, that he felt that I blindsided him. Wow. And that I had ruined his evening by telling him this way, that when he came home, he was so mad that he couldn't relax. He was so mad the way that I told him that his wife knew he was mad. And so everyone kept their distance from him because he was so stressed and mad that he told me very clearly, I ruined his evening.
Yeah.
He could not relax. I'm like, well, that's not my intention. I just wanted to have a conversation with you. People do leave. So he called me a liar. He made me feel like absolute shit. Gave me a huge guilt trip for wanting to leave and better myself. It was funny. We actually even signed up. We were all going to play in a golf tournament. He flat out said, I was going to call you and text you that you weren't going to go to that golf tournament because that's how mad I was. I mean, who does that? Like, who threatens you? Like, you weren't going to go to that golf tournament because I was so mad. Well, I'm like, well, if that's the case, I don't have to go. I wasn't trying to upset you. I was trying to be honest with you.
Sure.
But I'm sorry you feel that way. Yep. But this is the kind of person I dealt with just for many, many years. And it sucks it had to be that one person really bothered me. I could handle all the calls that I've seen. I could handle the nastiness of other people outside in the streets if they want to yell at me because I know they're under stress. And I know that they don't mean it because they're having an emergency situation. Either they're worried about their family, they're worried about the child, they're worried about their own health. But for someone inside the house who's supposed to protect you, who's supposed to be there for you, who's never really there for you, that's what hurts the most. And so I'd go home and go, this guy doesn't give a shit about me. And so again, it made me feel back as a kid again, where my stepdad didn't give a shit about me, where he would make sure that I felt like crap. Yep. And I would take that home, and I felt so bad because I would bring this home to my wife, and that's why I had to go and see a therapist, because I didn't want to burden her anymore with talking about that one person all the time. Yep. And it did feel better speaking to somebody else, because our wives are going to listen. The husbands are going to listen. Uncles, sisters, brothers, they're going to listen. But you feel like a burden after a while. And I was carrying so much weight at the station, and people could see I was angry. People could see that I was depressed. But that brotherhood, at least for me on that side of the department, really wasn't there, because no one would come up to me and go, "Are you okay?" They would just complain. Mike's angry again, right? Mike's not happy again. Mike's complaining, because when I got passed over for a promotion, and it really hurt because I felt it was more on a personal level. So, and honestly, for me, I felt I was unprofessional because I got in trouble for being unhappy because I was complaining so much. People complained about me complaining, and now I look at it, it was unprofessional. But I would have loved for somebody, instead of somebody complaining, it would have been great if somebody went up to me and went, "Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it?" But that never happened. It was, you need to get over it. That was what my chief told me all the time. You need to get over it. You can be mad at me, but don't be mad at the other people. Yeah. If and you need to move on. You need to move on. Well, that doesn't work.
Sounds very familiar.
Right? It's very, very tough, and it diminishes your feelings.
I've had those talks a few times about my attitude, I guess you could say, and it's just like, you get to a point, man, it's just like enough is enough, and you get tired of dealing with the bullshit, and it gets very aggravating sometimes, and it's not all the time, like what you're talking about, but there are certain instances where, especially coming from a firefighter rank, where you don't really have I don't want to say quote unquote the power, to change things, because you do from to a certain extent, but there's a lot of things that you can't effectively change as a firefighter,
Correct.
and ego comes in, plays a big part. I mean, as firemen, we all have those huge egos, and I know for me, dying to my ego has been a huge part of my healing, right? And just, you got to have grace for people. I'm not a
Grace, yeah,
counselor I'm not a
that's
counselor by any
perfect.
stretch of the imagination, but you got to know that, like that dude you're dealing with, I'm, probably guarantee you he's probably going through some stuff too. You know what I'm saying? Not
And that's
saying
the
that,
thing, probably is, right?
not
Yeah.
justifying the things that he does, but you got to be willing to say, you know what, dude, I screwed up and I need some help. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And until we get to that point, this is just going to be a vicious circle within the fire
That's what it
service.
was.
You know,
It's all over, right? It's just not me. I know other people. I've spoken to other firefighters and other
sure.
people in this business, and they definitely feel the same way. That they
Yeah.
have these problems, and
Moral injury. I don't know if you've heard anything about moral injury.
I have not.
I'll send you a white list or a white paper that Jeff Deal did on moral injury. Okay. And I'm just now learning a little bit more about the moral injury aspect of stuff. It's very similar to PTSD, kind of coincides with PTSD, but I think it has more to do with the stuff that's going on internal in the fire service, with the moral injuries.
Absolutely.
I'll send you the white paper on that and let you read it and check it out.
I'd love to read that. I really would. I love all the information I've been reading out there now. It's been really, really helpful. And speaking to people who have left my department, it's made me feel better because I know they've had the same issues,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't make me feel alone anymore. But the problem being is that it'll just keep going because nobody says anything.
Yeah.
And I had an exit interview, and I unloaded my exit interview, but it's not going to go anywhere. And I don't want anything anywhere. I just want people to be aware that that attitude, that environment, it tears people down.
Yes, it does.
Inside, it really just starts ripping you apart piece by piece, and you walk away feeling a smaller person because, again, the person doesn't seem to give a shit about you or your
Yep.
accomplishments. For me, like I have done so much, not for him, but just because I love the fire service and I want to learn. And so all those things that I've done, I did because I want to make the fire service better. I want to make my town
Sure.
better, my department better. And I never got anything. It was just flat out. He told me it's for you. It wasn't for the department. You did this because you want to advance. And that's,
Yeah.
when I got passed over for lieutenant, there was a thing that stuck with me from him is he said, I feel like you're chasing bugles. And that hurt
Yeah.
because isn't that what we're supposed to do? I mean, we're supposed to grow and advance and promote. And I said that to him. I said, don't you want me to promote? Like, isn't that what you want for your employees, is to continue to grow and to continue to be better and to learn and help lead this department? But
Sure.
for a chief officer, for a chief of the department, say to you, I feel like you're chasing bugles, because I had held, when I was a call member, I was a lieutenant. And then when I was a career, I was a fire inspector.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was applying for this lieutenant spot because we restructured. So I lost my fire inspector position.
Yep.
And so then a lieutenant spot opened up and I wanted to go for that. And the fact that your chief is telling you, I feel you're chasing bugles, it's a horrible thing to say to somebody. Cause now,
Well, how did he get to where he was at?
by chasing bugles, right? But he promoted through the ranks just like anybody else did. You got to put that time and effort in. And for somebody to say that, who's supposed to care for you and want to nurture you and want to have you grow, it's just a horrible way to tear somebody down. And
Yeah, I think that's what's lacking in the fire service. Not for every department, because I know there are, a lot of departments out there that try to bring their firefighters up in a positive manner for them to promote and everything else, but there are a lot of departments out there that are not like that, and it's that they just, you're basically on your own kind of thing. Hey, good luck. I know,
yeah,
like in Texas, being civil service departments, I mean, the testing procedures can be pretty rigorous sometimes. I know they are for our department. We got to study a crap ton of books, and then that's one of the reasons that I haven't promoted yet, is because the testing procedures, and scoring high enough and being able to pass the test. And it's
Yeah.
crazy to me, man. It's like the system is broke, in my opinion. But,
Yeah.
22 years, almost 22 years in, I've been a fill-in captain for probably 16, 17 years of of those years. So if a captain's off, I ride up as a captain. But right now I'm filling lieutenant, because they're trying to fill those positions. But we can't even get enough people to pass the test to fill those positions. So
It's
it's like,
tough. It's
what's going on? Like the testing procedures are I don't know. It's just, it's frustration. And then that just builds upon everything else that you've dealt with in your career. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm drawing to
Yep.
a close on mine. So, I'm just to a point to where I love being a fireman. I've done it for, 25 plus years, as a volunteer for a few years and then as a paid guy for the rest of those years. And it's very frustrating, man, to see something's changed in the fire service. And I'm still trying to put my finger on it. And I talk about this in a lot of different podcasts. I think a lot of it has to do with the moral injury aspect of it. It's not just the calls that we run. I think
Nope.
it's the
Not at all.
attitudes that we deal with on a daily basis. I think it's a culmination of stuff that we bring in as just human beings into the fire service, whether it be, the stuff that you went through or divorce or whatever it may be,
I think
as
that's why
kids
we put
growing
up
up.
with it, though, right? Because especially
Yeah,
the inside environments, because we love what we do, like you just said it,
sure.
right? You love being a
Yeah.
firefighter, you love the fire service, so we put up with that toxic environment
Mm-hmm.
because we deep down we still love the service. So we're going to put up with the negative aspect of it because we want to continue to help people. We want to
Yeah.
continue to work with our brothers and sisters. We want to continue to provide that service that a lot of people don't want to do, and that's why we're here to
Mm-hmm.
do it. And
Yep.
that's why I stayed. That's why, because I still loved being a firefighter in the community I lived in, or I still
Yeah.
loved. I didn't have another option to go anywhere at that time, so I wanted to be here to be that person to help. My kids were proud. My kids are proud of me,
Yeah.
but have that mental overload of being torn down and just
Mm-hmm.
not cared about. Again, this person's paid to care about us.
Sure.
That's what their job is, right? And the fact that he just doesn't seem to care, again, it's like having a father not give a shit about you. And that brings you
Yeah.
back to some of those people who have a really bad childhood, and it brings them back to those days of, geez, my dad didn't care about me. My chief doesn't care about me, because right, the chief's kind of like a father figure
Mm-hmm.
in the fire service. You think of them kind of like your father. Well, when you get older, it's kind of like a brother maybe, or an uncle. But as you're starting to grow up through the fire service, that's your dad. And
Yeah.
if that dad doesn't give a shit about you, you take that with you and go, man, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, and he doesn't say what I'm doing right. I only,
Yep.
right, the only time I hear is when I fuck something up, right? That's the time that he would talk to me, is if he wasn't happy about something I did. That's
Mm-hmm.
when he hears about me. Well, that's when I hear from
Yeah.
him. And it just, this new environment that I'm in now, it's, again, I'm alive again. I've got that passion, but there's still a part of me that's, I feel kind of like this beaten down little kid. So when I'm at work, I'm a bit quiet and I do my job, and I don't, because I'm a probie now. So I'm living that probie life,
Sure.
but at the same time, I have that kind of abusive kid syndrome where I'm afraid to really be kind of louder, or to speak up or have an opinion, because opinions in my previous department were frowned upon. Like, if I had an idea or an opinion, it immediately was, no, that's
Yeah.
stupid. It's not going to work. It wasn't never, oh, that's cool. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
Let's try it. Or why don't
Yep.
you come back and give me some material that you studied on, and we'll read this all together and see if this is actually going to work in a different way. But it was immediately just always a no. And if he didn't, because if it was an idea that he didn't think of first, it was, nope, it's stupid. I would say it's stupid. It doesn't work. This
Yeah.
department on now, even now, I had an idea my last shift, and my lieutenant was like, that's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah.
I've never had that.
That's the way
To
it should
be
be,
on a
man.
more, right, it's the way it should be. You want the ideas to grow. You because, right, the firefighters hate change and the way things are, right?
Mm-hmm. That's
So,
what they say.
right, they say it all the time. So it's nice to actually, even though I'm brand new to this place, that idea or that opinion was well received. It
Yeah.
wasn't met with, it's not going to work. That's
And that's the
stupid.
way that it should be, man. I mean, it should
Mhm.
be, we're all there for the same purpose, right? The end goal is we're all there for the same end goal. And that's to help
Right,
the citizens that
help
we
people,
serve, and
right?
to make a better place for that city, that department, and everything else.
But we
And
got to help each other too, and that's the hardest part
yes.
right now, right? We help people outside because we
Mm-hmm.
love to help people, but we still have problems helping people inside our own walls.
Yep.
And again, for
I don't
me,
understand why we fight each other like we do.
we
We're
do,
supposed to be
right?
brothers, right? We're supposed to be brothers and sisters in the fire service. And to
Exactly.
me, we're losing that. And I'm trying to figure out what is causing that loss. Why are we moving away from that? You know,
I
and I
think
haven't figured that out yet.
I've heard so many people say it, but one person who always said to me a lot, and I've talked to him about a lot of issues I've had, and his name is he's a lieutenant at Manchester Fire, Dave Quick. Guy is he's a genius with nozzles and hoses. His nickname is the hose nerd. But
I know
when I
him,
was
dude. I
venting to
met
him
him. I
one day,
met him at Dadgum. Yeah, the
yeah,
hose
he's a
nerd.
great guy. Dude knows his shit, right? But he had a
Yes.
podcast with National Fire Radio. I think it was National Fire Radio, and he just it really hit home to what things that he was talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
so I vented to him. He's like, you really have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable conversations. So if you
Yep.
see somebody struggling, you're gonna have to be uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable with that uncomfortable conversation of saying, "Hey, are you okay?" Because they might lash out at you, go, "Leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to talk to you." Okay, but at least you're making that effort and going, "Hey, well, if you want to talk, I'm here. If
Yep.
you want to vent, I'm here." But no one's ever done that when I was going through my struggles, and I'd come into work and I wouldn't talk to anybody. I was a completely different person from what you see
That
now.
was me,
I was
bro.
just
I'm telling you.
it was right. It's horrible. You hate because you know what? I felt sick. I'm prone to migraines, but stress brings on migraines, right? So I would come home, I'd get migraines. I felt like crap. I mean, I didn't want to talk. I was irritable with my kids. I was irritable with my wife, and I would have loved for somebody to say, "What's wrong, Mike?" It didn't have to be a chief. It didn't have to be a lieutenant. It could have been a guy at the same level that I'm at, and just want to just say, "Hey, what's the matter?
Yeah, we got to
Talk
take
to me."
care of
But
each other, dude.
right. So, but the problem is when I would talk to somebody, it'd get back to that person,
Yep.
and that's what. So I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody because as soon as I vented or talked, then the chief would be, "What's he saying? What did he say?" And they would open up to everything that I just told him. And it was more like telling on me, and then he'd come back up to me, go, "You need to stop complaining."
Yeah.
So even though I talked to somebody and I started venting to them because I thought it was like a safe space because they started talking about issues, so I unloaded. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as I unloaded, it went back to him, and he'd come to me and say, "I just heard from so and so that you're unhappy about this, that you're unhappy about that. You need to stop complaining and you need to get over it." Well,
Yep.
okay, I guess I can't talk to anybody anymore then. So that's what am I supposed to
Damn.
do?
I'll be in the same
So
department, bro.
right, right, and that's the thing, right? So you're in Texas and I'm in New Hampshire, but we have those same issues. So it's not just you and me; it's all over. It's east west, it's east coast, it's west coast. It's it's
Yep.
not isolated, but nobody really
Mm-mm.
talks about it. And again, I bring up Chief Rhodes, where he brings up that we're having a serious problem with PTSD inside our stations, that
Yeah.
nobody is helping to deal with the station or the issues that we have inside of us.
Yep.
We're not like I'm a different person. If I would like when I was going through those issues, I'd be angry, bitter, jaded, and I'm not talking to anybody. But as soon as I'm on that engine, it's a different
Know
mic. I'm ready to
exactly
go to
what you're
work,
talking about. Yep.
right? My problems are left at the station, and I'm going on the truck, and I'm going to be the nicest person in the world to whatever anything that's going on. Even if
Mm-hmm.
I'm working next to a person I don't like, when I'm working at structure fire, "Hey brother, what do you need? Let's get the hose in. Let's do this." And
Yep.
I'm a
Different
completely
mode,
different
man.
person, different
Different
mode,
mode.
right? I kick in a different
Yep.
mode. But as soon as I get back to the house and now I'm angry again because someone just said something, or the chief was just acting like a dick again because he yelled and screamed about something, and now I feel mad again, and it's like that trigger. It just all of a sudden it's that little thing that set me off, and now I'm angry and I'm mad and I don't want to talk to anybody anymore. I never lashed out at anybody. I just would just always keep it all inside, and
Yeah.
that's what I was really good at, was just keeping my emotions inside. As we know, it's not good. You keep them inside, it eats away at you like cancer, and then you become unhealthy and you're no good to anybody.
Yeah.
And my wife even said it right now. She's like, Mike's a different person now. He's out of that environment. He is happy. I come home, I'm not complaining. I've had a busy shift, but it's because I've been helping people. We've been
Yeah.
busy, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and we complain about being busy, but we were busy helping people, which is fantastic, and I love
Yep.
that. And so I
Mm-hmm.
come home now with no complaints about somebody being an asshole to me.
Yeah.
I did ladder training with my crew, my last shift, and my lieutenant said, "When you're throwing up ladders, if somebody's yelling at you on scene, that's not how it's supposed to go. So make sure you let me know, because I'm never going to tolerate that. Nobody should
Yep.
be yelling. Nobody should be screaming. Obviously, if there's something unsafe, they might say, you're going to yell you to stop.
Sure.
but I want you to know that you can talk to me. And if
Yeah.
somebody is doing something that's not right, or even if a chief officer is screaming at you, we'll deal with it after the problem.
Yep.
My last department was my chief always screamed at everybody on scene. That, he just was never happy. He was always screaming, and people would make fun, and he would come back with, "I never yell on scene." Well, we've got videos of it, but he would just never admit that, hey, you're not treating us right when we're trying to do our best. And the problem is when you're scared of that person or scared of getting yelled at, especially on an active scene, what happens? You make mistakes
Sure.
because
You're
you're so
walking on
worried about
nails
making
all the
sure that
time.
right, you're walking
Yeah.
on nails. So now you can't do what you've been trained to do because you're so worried about him watching and him yelling
Has a
and him
ripple
screaming or
effect,
him
man.
saying something negative. Right, the ripple effect. So,
Yep.
and right now I don't have that anymore, and I
That's
feel
good,
like
dude. Good for you,
a
man.
whole passion. Yeah, and unfortunately it's like not everyone can do that, right? You can't pick up and go, especially when like we're getting older. Being 40 myself, I'm 44. Like leaving to go to a new department, that's a big step.
Very
I'm
hard to do that in Texas.
very difficult to do, right?
36, you're done on a civil service, right? Like
Right.
I'm 50 years old. I can't go anywhere. I mean, I could probably go to a department that is not civil service, but
We're
I mean,
athletes age out,
yeah. I mean, I'm
right?
not getting any younger,
Right.
I mean,
Nobody
I've
wants a
done this.
44-year-old football player, right?
No, yeah. I mean,
So
I'm not as quick as a 22-year-old anymore. I'll admit that, I
your
mean,
knees hurt, your back hurts.
I consider myself a decent fireman still, I'm a decent paramedic. I'm not the best in the world, but firefighter wise, dude, I mean, I'm good. And I'll admit that I'm not trying to pound my chest or anything, but I've got some knowledge there, and I think that I'm still useful in the fire service. But being
Absolutely.
at 50 years old, I mean, my options are very limited. So,
Yep.
I'm stuck. I'm pretty much stuck where I'm at.
And that's
So
what sucks. That's a big suck
trying to
point
change
because
that environment. Yeah.
yeah,
And it's just,
yeah, you
it's an
just
uphill battle, man. I'm not saying
absolutely,
our
and that's
apartment is
horrible.
horrible. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying our
Yeah.
apartment is horrible. It's not. It's a good apartment. It's just we've got our own issues, just like every department does.
Yep.
And we've got egos, just like every department does. And
We're an alpha state of mind. Like
yep,
that's what we are. That's why we do it, because we love the action. We love to do these big show things, and
sure,
all the brothers and sisters all have big personalities, and that's really tough to compete with those personalities. But
yep. I
I
can tell you that 22 years in, for me, the fire service has definitely changed. Okay, from the firehouse side of it, inside the
yeah,
firehouse, it has changed. I don't know exactly what it is, but stuff has changed. It's the I don't know, man. It's just different than it was back in the day.
yeah.
And I don't want to sound like an old hat or anything. I'm a senior guy on my shift. So
I
love the
think I know
dudes
what you're
I work
talking
with.
about, and I think you're right. Like from when I joined the call force when I first started, there was parties, there was barbecues, there was this really it was a really cohesive bunch of people that really
Yes.
were tight knit. And
Hmm.
honestly, I feel that's fractured a lot. And
I wonder
I
why,
think
man. What
that's
I wonder why.
yeah, it's tough. I'm not blaming it on COVID either. I think COVID's just that sometimes it's a scapegoat, but this has nothing to do with that. I think it's just I think obviously I do think generational type of things have gotten away. Again, when I first started, man, everyone knew their kids' names. Everyone knew everyone. It was a very tight knit, and you're always over each other's homes all the time. The previous department, we just really faded away from that,
Yeah.
and you have certain cliques, but you
Yep.
don't have groups.
Yep.
And I don't know what that is or how do you bring that back, but I think it takes 1 to 3 people to start building those groups again. And just if you have the house and space for it, even if you don't, if you know another place to go to, you invite that group. You just say, hey, I want to go out. Let's just go out
Yeah.
and do something as a group. And if you continue to try to do that, maybe other people will be inspired to continue that and go, yeah, let's go over here now. Let's go over there now. Hey, I want to show you my house. I want to show you my neighborhood, or I want to show you this bowling alley that I'd love to go to. It's old school and it's really cool. Just I
Yep.
think that helps to get them out of the environment of the station. And you really can hopefully inspire them to go, yeah, it's a lot more fun to be together as a group, especially with
Sure.
departments that are smaller. You can all go out as a group. Like if you've got 20 people, that's still a lot of fun, and you're going to make
Yep.
more friends that way. And people are going to know how you are outside of your work environment.
Yeah.
And I do miss that. I that was why I joined originally, is because they had a really nice cohesive group. And I had made a lot of friends when I first joined, and we were always having parties every summer. Summer was campfires and all these awesome events we would do together. And it just stopped. And I think generations has just kind of gotten away. And I think it takes
the business of life, bro.
yeah.
I think all that plays a huge part in it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, everyone's got side jobs too, especially for career members, right?
Kids,
You're working
side
and your
jobs,
kids, and you got all these other careers that you're doing in between your shifts. And I think all
You
that
got to
gets in
make
the way. And
it takes an effort, right?
it
That
does.
effort has got to be made to bring
Yeah.
that cohesiveness back.
Yeah.
You know, for sure.
It's
think
tough.
Yeah.
It does. It takes a huge amount of effort. It really does. Because in a way, you also got to be like a party planner.
Yeah.
Right? And some people don't have time for that. Right? That's kind of difficult to play. I'm a party planner. I love doing that stuff, but it's, it sometimes you need more than just one person to do that.
Sure.
So it's been, but like it brought back before though, is that not everyone can leave that environment that I was in. You know, like you said, you can't leave the environment you're in, and you don't hate your department, which is great. And I didn't hate my department. I didn't mesh well with that one person. And unfortunately, he was leading the department, and I was becoming negative like him even before I'd left. If he had problems with people, then I would have the problem with the person, even though I've never met that person. But he would just talk so much shit about that person that, okay, I'm not gonna like them either. And so now that I'm away from that, I'm like, I would meet that person he would talk about. I go, I actually like that guy. He's actually a pretty cool guy. I like him a lot. So I don't know why he had problems with him. So it opened my eyes, and because again, when you're around that black hole, you get sucked into it. And so when I've seen
it happen to a lot of guys, man.
Right. It's quicksand, right? And you get stuck into that black negativity or that negative quicksand.
Sure.
Right. Right. And I was getting that mentality like him, and it made me mad that I was actually getting to that same level as him. I never wanted to be him, and I never wanted to come off like that. And I actually took a step back and went, damn it, I was doing him, and I don't want to do it anymore. And it's really great to step back and see I'm a better person because I'm not around that kind of stuff anymore. And it's been therapeutic.
Yep. Therapy, right? What else? I mean, therapy is the main thing that you did, right?
For me, like therapy, and I've stepped away from therapy for a while because I've been out of that environment. I've made a change to help me deal with that. So again, not everybody can make that change. So for me to help the situation, I knew I needed to leave. I was at that point, though, that it was that cycle. Everything's good right now. We're all friends again. Like everything was really good. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna leave, but I got the call from the department I'm on now. We would like for you to come aboard. And I said to my wife, I can't pass up this opportunity. No. Because she even said, if you don't take this job, you have no place to complain anymore about this chief, right? I don't want to hear you piss and moan. And my wife is she's very straight. So she's going to tell you like it is. And she flat out said, I don't want to hear you piss and moan anymore. If you're going to make this decision to not go to this department, that's on you. But I don't want you coming home pissing and moaning because he pissed you off. Yeah. I said, you're right. So again, it was well, he was nice to me this month. Okay, I can tolerate it again. But if this next month is going to go around, then I'm going to, and again, being 44 years old, I'm like, well, if I say no to them, it's never going to happen again. And I have to stay where I'm at or become a car salesman somewhere. Not that it's a bad thing. But
no.
So for me, what helped
was... You got to do what you got to do.
Do, right? So for me was leaving that environment. I knew I needed to leave. Even though I was at a good space, my head had cleared out, I knew it still needed to happen. Yeah. And it's been a humbling experience for me because, not that I knew everything, but I was getting that mentality because I was more of a senior guy. Like, I knew everything, and I teach, so I'm unteachable. I didn't have that straight up mentality, but I was getting to that point. And now in this new department, it's been a humbling experience. It makes me realize things I don't know. And I'm not a strong EMT. We run ambulances here, so it's been a humbling experience relearning that. I feel like a brand new EMT again. And then I also feel it's just the fire suppression side of things. That's my strong suit. Just like you said, I feel like I'm a really good firefighter, but there's so much stuff that these guys that I'm with now, they know so much and they do it all the time as opposed to my older department.
Very humbling experience.
Completely humbling experience. And that takes a lot of mental fortitude to understand You have to be humble. You can't just say, "Oh, I know this. I've done this." No one's going to want to talk to you. They well,
Mm-mm.
screw this guy. I can't teach him anything because he says he knows it all. And then when you
Yep.
go to try to do it and you screw it up, well, now you look like a complete asshole.
Yeah.
So it's been a very humbling experience. So for me, that helped a lot. Leaving that environment, going to this, being surrounded by positive people, and they've said it so many times. We want to see you succeed. We want to help you in any way. Is there anything that you need? The fact that I even asked us, they asked that to me was, is there anything you need from us? What can we help you with? I
Yeah.
never had that before from the department I was on. That was amazing. And the award, so the award that I won, they're helping the Explorer program. Actually, it was therapeutic. Working the Youth Explorer program.
Mm-hmm.
I watched. It was only a week, but walking away from that week, dealing just with kids,
Yep.
55 kids, and meeting all these new people, I walked away feeling so refreshed, so happy, realizing that I'm not worthless
Yep.
because people actually listened to me and they actually valued what I had to say. I had value. That was the biggest thing for me. I had value. So
Sure.
my previous department, I never felt valued.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like my former chief told me many, many times, if you want to leave, leave. I don't need you. He didn't say it just to me. He said to a lot of other guys, you're
Yeah.
replaceable. I do not need you. So if you want to leave, leave. Don't think you're doing any favors for me by staying. Just be honest with me and tell me you're going to leave. He said
Yep.
it many, many times. Why would you want to work for somebody who's just told you, I don't care if you're here? Right. So, and then when
Yep.
you tell him you're leaving, he gets mad at you. Right. For
Well,
it's
they know that there's 100 other dudes behind you waiting to come step in, right?
unfortunately
And to
for
me,
like my department was there isn't 100 people ready to step in because
yeah, and you know what,
it's
dude? That's kind of how it is throughout the United States now. It's getting harder and harder to
correct.
find guys, right? But in their
Exactly.
mind, that's the way they see it, right? And to
When you work for
me,
a narcissist, that's what you get.
yeah, I mean, and that's the way a lot of departments see it. You're replaceable, which you are to an extent, but
Mm-hmm.
you got to find value in the people that you have, man, and try to build that up in that department.
Correct.
That's how I would think about it.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm not a chief, but find value in the people that you have, and make them want to come to work, and make them want to be a part of that shift and that daily routine and everything else. And when that's not happening, bad stuff starts happening. So
That stuff. Yep. And that's the
a lot
thing.
of
You really have to work on that, right? Like you really have to like include them. And
Mhm.
if you see somebody sitting on the outskirts, include them. You know,
Yeah.
they're gonna want you to reach out to them, unfortunately. And you're gonna have to say, hey, why don't you come and we're gonna do some training, some simple stuff. We're gonna do table talk. Come and
Hmm.
join us,
Yep.
and at least ask them and keep asking them. And of course, after a while, you're like, screw it, I don't want to ask them anymore. But try to involve them. That's a fantastic idea. That I love that you said that. Like, include them as much as you can.
Yeah.
And maybe they feel embarrassed because they don't know, and that's why they're
Yeah.
not including themselves. So include
Well,
them,
I can tell
and
you
don't
this:
ridicule them.
20 years in, and the last 3 years, I have learned so much about our craft. Right, just different ways of doing things.
You could never know it all, right? The
Mm-mm.
people who
I've
know it
learned
all.
so much, man. My
So
captain,
I
I've got a younger captain, right, that just came in, and uh, he's got different ways of doing things, and I love it. And we train every shift just about, and just the new stuff that's happening in the fire service and learning that stuff. It's just,
Mhm.
dude, it's been amazing for the past few years. About learning new ways to do the craft. So yeah,
It's always new ways,
you
and so
need
for
that.
me, finding outlets is what has really helped me come along. Like in the Explorer program, I've never been a fire explorer when I was younger. It was all new to me. Um, they last year or so they asked for help to help run the program because they're bringing it back up
Hmm.
again. I thought it was really cool. I wanted to be a part of it, so I did it, and it was the best thing mentally of me doing that with them because all the kids that I met were amazing. All the adults that were working in with it were amazing. Not just the counselors or advisors, but we also brought in other instructors that work in other departments. So I got to work with people that I really look up to, and I learned from them, and I learned a lot about myself.
Yep.
And I'm still doing it now, and that's my passion. I think for anybody who's struggling, if you sit and don't have anything to do, that's when you're going to start sitting there and feeling sorry for yourself. And you're just going to constantly play everything in your head over and over and over again. You got to
Yep.
find some kind of outlet. And I honestly strongly recommend don't try to become a ambulance, don't do EMT stuff somewhere else. Or sometimes firefighters can be elsewhere and volunteer with other communities. If you got a good department that's really
Take a
strong,
break
and,
from it.
and you got to take a break
Yeah.
from it, right? You got to unload. You got to take a break from it. So the Explorer program, that was a different way. That was me just expelling everything I know onto kids, right? All the knowledge that I had acquired, and just working with them, watching them smile and grow. That
Mm-hmm.
was just so beneficial and so therapeutic for me, because when I was doing that, that was really more of the highlights when I was in my peak of my darkest times. And I
Sure.
felt that week really brought a spark back to me. And then
Sure.
just doing stuff with your family, trying to just, again, take that break, camping, just going on walks. And if it's still not working, you can still have the therapy as well. Just having somebody from the outside talking, somebody who's unbiased, who doesn't know you, who doesn't know your department, doesn't know anything, just to be able to reach out and talk to them it goes miles, right? And there's now,
Yep.
what's great is there's counselors out there that specialize what we do. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that carries a lot of weight. So you're talking to people that have done their homework and know what we go through and know what we see, so they can actually
Very
understand it.
important.
And extremely important. If you go to a therapist who doesn't know our line of work, it's hard for them to understand where we're coming from.
Yep.
And I think that's great that we have more counselors that are actually doing the homework on us and
Mm-hmm.
making sure they know how to help us in different ways.
Yep.
And the therapist I saw, she specialized in first responders, and she had a great way of talking real life. She didn't use big talk. She understood where I was coming from. And she laid things out straight, and it was
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really helpful. And she made me help make decisions, because pros and cons of leaving. I'm going to leave this, but I have this. And we did that back and forth. And
Yep. I've done
yeah, I
that
could do
too.
it with my wife, but my wife was biased, right? But she's
Right.
not. So she really helped me make those decisions. And
Sure.
there's ways out there. If you got a motorcycle, ride a motorcycle. If you ride bicycles, ride a bicycle. If you love to swim, take up more swimming. I love to work out. So, when I'm feeling upset or I'm angry, I go to the gym, and I love to
Yep.
be a part of that gym. I took up jujitsu for a while. That was a
Mm-hmm.
great outlet to do that. So, you get to really get things out on the mat, and that
Yep.
helps. Boxing's a fucking great outlet, because you're hitting something
Mm-hmm. Yep.
without getting arrested. So
Mm-hmm.
that's always a
That's
bonus.
all. That's all part of that resiliency, man. Got to be
Yeah.
resilient. That bounce
Yep.
back, right, and having the avenues to be able to bounce back, to
But I
get
also
rid of
think
that
being
that
open
stuff.
and talking, that's the
Absolutely, man.
hardest part. So we can do all these extra outlets, but it helps take care of some of the pain. But if you don't speak openly about it, it's going to hurt. So if, like, for me, it wasn't about what I've seen in the field. It was about dealing with somebody personal inside my station. So for me, I always felt like I didn't have a voice and I couldn't talk. That's what was eating me up inside and keeping me down. Was I had all these outlets I was going to and using, but I still had to go back to work and still deal with that same person and not be able to talk.
Yeah.
And what really woke me up is when I had gotten reprimanded for my attitude. And it wasn't because I made that person unhappy, but I was making everybody else in the department unhappy. And then they
Yep.
all complained about that. That's what actually woke me up. And I realized, wow, I'm affecting everybody else negatively. I need to stop. So that's what really changed my attitude. And I realized I could be as unhappy as all I want with that one person. That's fine, but I gotta be better than him, because he's gonna win. And
Yeah.
he was winning. And now, if I keep a positive attitude, he's not gonna win anymore. And so
Yeah.
that's what really opened my eyes. I almost had like the 10-step program of like the AA. Like, I was going to people once that was presented to me, that I was that people were complaining about me, about my attitude, and always complaining and whining. um, I started going to people and approaching them and say, I am sorry for the way I acted towards you. And maybe that's not the right thing, but to me, it felt right. To me, it felt good to actually talk to them and say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry for being angry, and I'm sorry for giving you the cold shoulder, or I was going through things, and I do realize how bad I was treating other people. And that
Sure.
helped me realize that I can be a better person. Even though he's going to
Yep.
treat me like shit, I can still be that better person,
Yep.
and be professional. And so that experience was humbling, taught me humility, but also taught me a lot about myself, that I can still be professional. And if something goes wrong at work, I now know from experience I can handle it, and I'm going to maintain a professionalism, and I'm not going to make other people pay for that one person's mistake.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. I needed to hear that today. For
It's
real.
tough.
That's
I mean, I mean, there was no doubt. There's times I cried, man. Like I come
sure,
home and
man.
I would bawl
Yeah,
my eyes out. And what it had nothing to do with what I saw. Again, I've seen some bad shit, right? We've all seen it, but that I never cried because of that.
yeah,
It sounds like, again, we're afraid to admit it and talk openly about crying and our feelings. But I would come home and I fucking
break
cried. And
down.
I cried in front of other people in the station when I was apologizing to them because I felt so embarrassed for
Yeah,
acting that way because I didn't know what else to do because I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I
yep.
just kept on the side and acted like this angry little man.
Hmm.
And then
It's that
the
accumulation, man, of all the
accumulation,
stuff you
right?
brought in. Right, you had all the trauma throughout your childhood, and then you have all the trauma that you see. Right, and it may not be one event. It may not be an event at all. It's just that stuff is still there, though. But
Right.
then you're living the firehouse life, right? Which can be similar for a lot of folks, can be different for other departments, but small town fire departments can get kind of crazy sometimes. It's just the way that it is. And you
Yep.
build all that stuff up, it's going to come out one way or another.
Yeah.
You can't hold it. You can't hold it forever. That's just what it is.
Nope. You can't. It's like we all agree. Like you hold it in. It's when bad shit happens, and
It's going to eat you up.
it's gonna eat you up. It's gonna eat your health away. It's gonna eat your mind away, and you could lead to divorce. Your kids will resent you. Again, people inside your firehouse will resent you, and they're not going to want
Yep.
to talk to you. And I've experienced that, and it was as negative as that experience was. It was a positive experience of
Yeah.
understanding that you still have an option. You still can be better than that person.
Yeah.
And so that's when I realized right there is that I'm better than that. I've lived through the bad shit when I was a kid. I can beat
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah.
And it really is a mental strength and a mental fortitude, and still talk to people, but just realize that not everyone's your enemy. You might
Mm-hmm.
be angry at that one person, but everybody else is not angry. And they're going to be afraid to talk to you because your shoulders are up, you're angry, you're pissed off, and they're afraid of you because they're afraid of you lashing out.
Yeah.
And so I do realize that now is that I
That's a
was
real
angry because
thing, man.
people didn't want to talk to me. And now I realize why they didn't want to talk to me is because I was looking like this angry man and they were afraid of me lashing out verbally to them. And
Yep.
so I don't hold grudges on anybody except for obviously that one person who's made my life the way it is, but I'm getting better and I'm a better person for it.
That's what it's all about, dude.
Yep.
Sometimes we have to go through some struggles to get bigger on the other side of it. And, uh, good for you, man, to, standing up and saying sometimes the best thing to do is just to move on,
Move on.
and
Yep.
move on with your life, man. Sometimes it's better just to get out of that environment and just be done with it, man, and go grow somewhere else. That's what it
Exactly.
takes sometimes,
Sure
unfortunately,
does.
but it happens.
It
So,
does.
and that's got to be probably one of the hardest things to do, like for me, I'm not going to be there forever. Right. And thinking about my time is coming to a draw with the department that I'm at. It's tough, man, just to think about that because there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that's been put into that place.
Yep.
From all of us, not just me, but from all of our brothers and sisters we work with. And
Right.
walking away, man, that's a huge impact on your life, especially if you're
Yep.
not going to another department and you're going into retirement life. That's a whole nother aspect, So
That's
yeah,
tough, right? Because you don't want to feel forgotten. All the things that you've done, right?
yep,
You don't want to feel forgotten. So when you walk through those doors and there's new people in there, and they go, "Who is this guy? I don't know who he is." You feel
mm-hmm,
forgotten. So my father-in-law, he was a firefighter for 28 years.
yep,
He retired like 20 years ago, and he retired as a deputy for a big community for Nashua Fire. But when he walks through those doors, some people don't know
nobody
who he
knows him.
is, right?
Yeah,
Because it's been so long, and that's a hard thing. Because you said it to me before. He's like, "Man, I walk through the doors. Nobody knows who I am. They don't remember me," and that's tough, right? Because you've built
yep,
your station up. You were one of those people that been there for so long that you've seen new trucks come and go. You've seen stations being rebuilt. You've seen protocols change, nozzles change. You've been there to help enforce those
yep,
and help it bring new things in. And then when you leave,
that's
no
it.
one remembers you, right?
Yeah,
You don't
it
want to.
shouldn't
Nobody
be
wants to
like
feel
that, man.
forgotten, right? It shouldn't be like that. And I know people try to remember those people, but at the same time, the world changes and it grows, and um, unfortunately, people do forget. But
Yeah,
I think the stories have to be told. And if you keep telling stories, that way your name keeps getting mentioned, or when you have
that
good,
kitchen
funny
table talk,
stories,
brother.
the table talk, right? And you talk some funny stories. I remember it,
Very
and
important.
Matt did this and Matt did that. The guy fell out of the truck, and he, whatever the situation
Yeah.
may be. But when you have those fun firehouse stories, that's what keeps those memories alive.
And
And even if you just do it,
we have to keep creating those memories, man, for our guys,
yep,
new guys coming in. It's
exactly.
very important to do that. And
Yep.
I think that kind of plays a part in it too, man. It's like we're getting more of the corporate America style fire departments, and I hate it, man. Because that's not what I came into, and
That's a toughie.
I don't like it. We need to keep
corporate
that.
America. I think you're
Yeah.
right on that. That definitely changes things.
Yeah. So that's awesome, dude. I'm glad you came on. Just wrapping up real quick. Is there anything else that you can tell a brother or sister out there, man, that may be struggling or going through similar things? What would you recommend for them?
That you're not alone. That there's like this outlet here. That the fact that you're doing this I think is amazing. I jumped right on it because it's out there. And if you're struggling,
this literally happened in a day, just so people know.
Yeah, I saw it, and literally I reached out to Matt, and then now that was yesterday, and now we're here today. And I think it's great. I think that when you're struggling, whether it's what you see in the field or what is you're dealing with some kind of type of atmosphere inside your station, you got to talk about it. Reach out to your employee assistance programs, which is available to everybody who works for a municipality. I know some people feel like it's a taboo, or they feel weak. You're not weak. You don't feel like you're a victim. It's the thing for me for the longest time. I felt like I was worried about retaliation. That's what people are for, and that's why you do have people in certain positions. If you feel that you're going to be retaliated against, you tell somebody, I don't agree with the way I'm being treated. I need help. Whether it's an HR, whether it's your union rep, you need to make sure that you're telling somebody, I feel either bullied, or I feel that somebody is going to hold something to me because I complained, or I had a problem with the way I was spoken to. You need to be open about it. No one should ever feel afraid they're going to be fired because they felt that they emotionally were attacked. And because it's not the old school ways anymore. No one should be called names. No one should be made to feel they have to be uncomfortable in the firehouse. But if you're feeling any kind of that way, reach out to the programs that are listed. Again, IFF has amazing tools available for anybody who needs it when they're in their fire service. Reach out to your HR person. And even if that HR person you feel isn't doing the job for you, go above. Find somebody else and say something. Don't let yourself be victimized, because you're going to carry that for the rest of your life. And if you're going to have grudges, you're going to be jaded. Reach out to all the tools, your family. Again, therapy is really, as you know, Matt, is one of the most important things. If you feel that you can't talk to your guys inside, if you feel that you don't want to talk to or burden your family, talk to somebody. There are therapy out there. Big news is that actually, because it's so important for me, I have a twin sister, and she actually owns a bunch of counseling services in New Mexico. She has all these little satellite offices. I reached out to her and I said, I am very passionate about firefighter mental health. I want to do something about that. So she deals specifically actually with military, because she was military. So I said, can we do something for firefighters? There's not enough offices around for firefighters or first responders to talk to. We have to search hard. So I said, I want to bring something to New Hampshire. So we're going to do that. And so my sister and I are actually going to bring a counseling service to New Hampshire. We're going to try we're going to try to open something up, and we're going to get counselors in this general area for people to go to, because
that's awesome.
They're out there, but you have to really search hard for it. So the world's getting to be a better place for us, that they know that we struggle mentally. And it doesn't have to be a secret anymore. And don't ever feel like it has to be a secret. Don't feel that you're weak. Don't think that you're a victim, because you're not. Like, you're West Coast. I'm East Coast. There's people in Midwest. There's people all over this world that are struggling with the same struggles that we have. The fact that you and I are in sync with the same issues that we have, it just shows we're not alone.
It's crazy, bro.
Right? It is crazy. Well, the fact that we also look a lot alike too. So
I'm a little heavier than you, but we look similar.
But this has been great. This is even just doing this is therapeutic.
Sure,
talking to you.
That's why I do what I do. Man. It's therapeutic.
I love it. I thank you.
Not only that, but the people, man. I want y'all to have a voice, and let other guys and girls know that our brothers and sisters in the service and dispatchers and police officers, that hey man, this is real and it happens, unfortunately. And, you got an avenue here to come in and talk about it and just to
Yep.
unleash it. I'm not a
Unleash
counselor.
you. Let's let it go.
Yeah. I'm not a
Right. There's
counselor.
no
Don't claim to
judgment.
be. No,
Yep.
no,
And I
it's
thank you so much for that, Matt. It is fantastic to talk to you.
yeah,
I'm
dude,
glad
we'll
you're
keep
doing
in
this.
touch.
This is beautiful thing. Yeah, and I look forward to the information that you referred to earlier, and I
Yeah.
love reading up on it. And thank you so
Yeah.
much for having
I'll
me.
tell you,
Appreciate
I'll
it.
tell you about the EMDR stuff when we go offline.
Yes, please
And
do.
I'm
Yeah,
telling you, it's
absolutely.
life changing for sure.
I look
With
forward to
that,
it.
man, let's wrap it up. But yeah, man, it's been an awesome interview. Thank you again, man. I'm glad it happened. It happened fast, and I needed this
Sure
today.
did.
It was just as good for me as it's going to be for the guys out that are listening to it. But
I hope so.
yeah, with that, if there's anybody out there that's struggling or having a hard time, suicide ideation or whatever, man, just struggling a little bit, 988 is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Don't be afraid to reach out to them if you need help. For some reason you feel like you can't do that, or just, for whatever reason, reach out to us. freeburn2023 at gmail.com is our email. We're on all the social media platforms of freeburn2023. You can find us there. Like I said, I'll always say, if I can't find you somewhere to go or help, I know somebody that can, promise you. And I'll do everything in my power to make that happen. So with that, Mike, man, I appreciate you coming on. Awesome
Thank you for
story.
having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you are on that other side now. You've made the moves to better your life and to better your your career and everything. That's awesome, dude. That takes some guts, to do that. And
Thank you.
good stuff, man. We'll keep in
Thank you so
touch.
much. Absolutely.
All right, let's keep burning that stigma down, one podcast at a time. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Free Burn 2023 podcast. If you or somebody you know is in crisis, reach out to the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988. Or if you're looking for counseling resources, contact us at freeburn2023 at gmail.com. We'll do our best to get you to where you need to be. Let's keep burning that stigma, one podcast at a time.